You ever question the nature of your reality?
I think there may be something wrong with this world. They're infecting flies with it.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Westworld. Not the Western world anymore. Actually, literally Westworld. For those of you who haven't watched Season 4, the new season of Westworld, it is about artificial intelligence, a war between artificial intelligence and humans. And the first 3 seasons, they imply that humans won the war. And in Season 4, spoiler alert, we find out that AI has actually infected humanity using those flies that it just showed. What did they say they used? Parasites, black goo, and insects. So here we are in our reality. It reminds me of all those years ago when KJ, he launched his channel, and the name of his channel, because of the documentary, the movie he made, was called The Scariest Movie Ever, because the scariest movie ever is the one that we are actually living in. And it's never been more true than it is now, or more apparent. You know, it's been this way a long time, but we are now waking up to where we really are, this world that we live in, and what these people and this AI have really infected us with. Mentally, physically, and unfortunately, even spiritually. So I guess we'll kick this off with the news that has come out. They finally admitted what we've been saying for years, especially the last several months. In my video series, we've been talking about how they use mosquitoes and these genetically engineered organisms, everything from parasites to ticks to mosquitoes, to deliver this infection that they tell us is a vaccine. And they've been telling us that our entire lifetimes. And in the last video, we discussed that it never has been a vaccine. If you have not seen that, the last video where we left off this conversation, because it's a building block process we've been walking through for years, that last video is here on the screen. It's called, What is the Nagalase Protein? Biggest cover-up, Marburg assassinations, Flight MH17, Gulf War syndrome, thalidomide babies, and so much more. That video alone was, basically the whole month or a little more worth of videos all rolled up into one, so that all of it could be presented in context, to be able to see the big picture, to go up higher and, get the higher altitude view of what's going on. And to do that, it takes time to be able to present everything in context. So this is going to be a long video again, because now we're going to go back through all of these series, like this one on the screen, the Archon Invasion, Parasites and the Vax Files, and the Biological Apocalypse. There again is another 3 hours. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of this research on my website. It's all for free. None of it is subscription based. It's all out there for free. You can take it, you can share it, you can mirror it. I don't care if you monetize it. I want you to be blessed. Just please get the information out as far and wide as you can. We've already been terminated from YouTube long ago. So the alternative platforms, we just don't have the reach. We don't have the tens of millions of views that we could get on YouTube. So, I appreciate any help that we can get getting the truth out. So now, once again, although we were mocked and ridiculed as conspiracy theorists, they finally admit that, yes, this is what scientists have done. They have been doing it for decades. And so I want to start out with some of those articles and clinical trials and scientific studies. So I'm fairly certain most, if not all of you, if you're on a channel like this, that probably all of you, or pretty close to all of you, saw this news story that blew up in the news. It went viral when NPR, they blasted it. I mean, they're showing this to us now. I mean, I'm going to show you news footage, news coverage that they've been telling us a little along for decades. But people they don't want it. It's that normalcy bias. They don't want to believe that we have been injected using insects, purposely injected using insects. So anyway, here's the NPR article from September 21st of 2022. So in the last couple of weeks, it's been big news. And they talk about the clinical trials here in the United States, in Seattle, where they are using these mosquitoes, these genetically engineered mosquitoes that have been infected with parasites that are creating this, quote, vaccine. And it's funny, they use the exact terminology that we used in past videos, which we got kicked off of all mainstream social media platforms for saying. They use the exact same terminology right here. This is University of Washington in Seattle. They literally say, quote, "We use the mosquitoes like they're 1,000 small flying syringes." That's exactly what we have been warning about all of this time. And oh gosh, to say that a mosquito would be a genetically modified organism that they have been using to, quote unquote, vaccinate people or inject us with whatever they want to inject us with. Okay, so let's jump back to this scientific journal, the Science Transitional Medicine. And let's read this article about that, because this talks about them doing this same research in the United Kingdom, in Cambodia, everywhere. They have these bioweapons labs everywhere, especially in the Ukraine, which we will discuss a little later in this. Okay, so let's just read some of this. Scientists have managed to turn one of the deadliest insects into a vaccine delivery system. According to new reports from NPR, a clinical trial for a system meant to use mosquitoes to deliver vaccines has been underway in the United Kingdom. So we're not just talking about Seattle, United States. And the findings of that clinical trial have already been published in the Science Transitional Medicine. According to the paper, scientists were able to genetically modify parasites to deliver vaccines through mosquito bites. To get the desired effect of the mosquitoes delivering the vaccine, scientists loaded them with genetically modified parasites. In the past, scientists have tried to do something similar. However, this is the first time that CRISPR technology has been used to accomplish it. So that's the takeaway here. In the past, they have been doing this for a long time, using mosquitoes to distribute vaccines. I mean, this is so dystopian. And like the medical journal said, it's not that this is new. It's that now they have the ease of the CRISPR-Cas9 technology, the gene editing technology. So here's just a couple of examples. Here's 2020, how a vaccine made of mosquito spit could help stop the next pandemic.
The key to stopping the next pandemic may lie in mosquito spit. In a lab outside of Cambodia's capital, they're running tests by first dissecting mosquitoes to extract their saliva, then taking that saliva protein they hope to build a universal vaccine.
And then here's one from 5 years ago, 2017, researchers testing mosquito saliva vaccine. And this harkens back to, you guys know we talked about, and I know this is far out, I probably shouldn't say that this early in the video for new viewers, but you guys know that we talked about the saliva glands. Going all the way back to, 7-8 years ago, around 2015, when everyone was doing the spit tests with the grape juice to see the actual nanotech go crazy when you put a little bit of alcohol in it, to show that they have been doing horrific human experimentation on us, that they have been changing us purposefully, using everything from chemtrails to these injections to bioweapons like mosquitoes and ticks. But as far as the saliva thing, we covered that a lot back when we covered Morgellons and chemtrails and these spit tests. And we have followed that line of thought through the last decade or so, all the way up to talking about like the I Am Legend movie, where they thought they had a vaccine to cure cancer, right? And it extincted humanity and created these vampire-like creatures that could infect people with their saliva. A zombie apocalypse movie, but at the same time also a sort of vampire apocalypse movie, which we have all of these ancient legends of vampires that infect people with their bite, similar to what we were talking about with these mosquitoes. So perhaps I should have waited till later in the video to get more into the fringe science, but those of you who have watched a lot of my content, you know that this is an ancient program. This is just the modern iteration. But anyway, the point for right now is that this NPR article that went viral telling people that they were using mosquitoes to vaccinate humans, that this is not anything new. Here's 2020, 2017. And you know that I started this very video out in the first few seconds with this news article from Asia in 2010. So we're talking 12 years ago, where they say a group of Japanese researchers has developed a mosquito that spreads the vaccine. So we're talking about shedding and all of this stuff. And we talked about this in the parasite video, that what we are calling shedding, the reason why they mock it and they're like, oh, these are attenuated viruses, they're not even alive, it's because they're not even talking science. They're talking bullshit. They're talking propaganda. Real science explains all of this. What we are calling shedding or contagion, it's very real, but we need to understand the science behind it, that people get parasites. We get parasites from one another. Like we talked about pinworms, that their eggs are so small, they're lighter than air. They float in the air like dust. So like if somebody in your family, one of your kids gets pinworms, then everybody in the house has to take the medication, because it's impossible that you wouldn't breathe that in, that you wouldn't get infested or infected. That's why they ban ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine and all talk of anti-parasitic medications. We've done videos about fenbendazole being a cancer treatment and all of that. There's a reason why they ban that information, because this technology, like in Westworld and in reality, in these GMO mosquitoes that vaccinate people by stinging them, that technology requires parasites. And I just can't believe the amount of cognitive dissonance on the side of the left, the brainwashed army, the woke army of cancel culture, who are like, how dare you say such a thing? It should be against the law to talk about that possibility when every other mammal gets parasites. We're told that every single month, like 30 days, 90 days at the most, that we should be deworming our cats, our dogs, even our fish. I have to put parasite stuff in the fish tank. All of the livestock get parasites, the cattle, the horses, the swine, sheep, goats. Every animal deals with this. And in the parasite video, we even talked about snails having it, ants getting parasites. Everything gets parasites. But when it comes to humans, they're like, oh no, that's absurd. No, stop talking about it. No, humans don't need to have a parasite cleanse every month. No, stop it. Why is that? Why does the medical community completely neglect human care when it comes to parasites? And in fact, like we saw, they're trying to take the medical licenses away from frontline doctors and all of these doctors who are prescribing antiparasitics. So this isn't just like, oh, we never thought of it. It's that, no, we will destroy doctors who want to prescribe antiparasitics for humans, which is such a paradox because these same lefties, the majority of them, are evolutionists. They don't even believe in God or the Bible. They believe the evolutionist lie they were taught in schools. So they believe that we're just animals. So you would think they would be more prone to understand if all of these other animals have to be dewormed every month or whatever, that yes, an antiparasitic for a human animal would be logical. That regardless of how illogical and unscientific their belief system is, they're like, we trust the science. It's like, what? You don't believe in science at all. You're in a cult, a scientism, a pseudoscience, mess that doesn't even make any sense. Anyway, on the subject of the parasites that we're talking about today, this is why they've been so brainwashed to think that humans should not be allowed access to any parasitic medications. It's because this is part of the technology. They are trying to colonize our bodies, and they don't want us to have access to antiparasitic medications that might mess up a step in their process. If you watched that Joe Tippin's protocol video, the one about fenbendazole curing his cancer, that's how he actually found out. It was divine providence that he just happened to have a friend who worked at Merck Labs. And word had spread, word of mouth. It was hush hush. It wasn't anything in a medical document that they admitted to the masses. But one cancer researcher who was working on a clinical trial with mice, she infected all of the mice with cancer, and then they were testing different treatments. But the entire population of mice came down with parasites. So she had to treat them with fenbendazole before she could continue the cancer study. Well, when she came back to start the study, all of the cancer in the mice population that she was using in the trial was cured. And they had had cancer before. They were for the project. So the only thing they had been given was this fenbendazole. So again, of course, Big Pharma didn't announce, we cured cancer! Here, you can get it for like $1 and nobody has to die. No, of course not. They were like, don't tell anybody. This is the biggest secret in the world. But then down the road, she herself got brain cancer. I believe probably because she was working in the lab with these. They infect these animals with cancer. They give them cancer. So people who don't believe, that the polio vaccine was contaminated with cancer-causing agents, and Judy Mikovits' story about her discovering that they were putting these cancer viruses in the vaccines and stuff. If you go back and watch that last video that I put up, I went case by case by case that all of these came out of the labs. And I think that's what happened to this lady, because she was working with these different cancer-causing agents that they used to infect the mice with cancer. So then they have a population to do their cancer research on. I think that she infected herself. And we saw that in the lab outbreaks again and again and again. That's what the last video was about. But anyway, point being, she came down with brain cancer. And she had, even though it wasn't allowed to be known to the public, she knew because she had worked in the lab when that happened. And she gave herself animal dewormer. She gave herself fenbendazole and cured her brain cancer. So, even though we weren't allowed to know about it, Joe Tippins did know somebody who knew her. And they called him up when he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and they told him that he just had weeks to live. This person called him up covertly and said, listen, I got to tell you about this. I know a lady, and this is what she used. And then he used it, and his cancer was cured. So anyway, the moral of this story, the point that I'm making, is that Big Pharma knows this whole push to censor all speech about ivermectin, and you're not allowed to say the word cancer cure, and all of this. It's not because they're trying to protect you. It's not because, oh, disinformation kills people. It's not because they think that these frontline doctors are quacks. This is a drug cartel that knows. This is pinpoint accuracy to keep us from getting our hands on cures. Cures for the stuff that they are doing to us. The entire industry is corrupt. And you know, for years, like in my first book, I used the old adage, they're more concerned about wealth than health. That's what the industry is. But it's beyond that even. They have a medical agenda. They have a bio-tech. They say it in the name of their companies. A biological, technological interface that they are working on for some hidden hand. And they don't want us to have access to information that it's even going on, and certainly not access to medical treatments to get in their way. Back to the clinical trials and the NPR article and the medical journal. The publication of the data from the August 24th vaccine trials say that the insects, in this case being the mosquitoes, deliver live parasites that have been genetically modified. So every single one of these mosquito bites are infecting the people in the trial with live parasites. And of course they tell us, oh, but because they've been genetically modified, they're not actually going to hurt you. You're just going to produce antibodies. Of course, it doesn't work, just like the COVID vaccine. So why are they doing this? Why are they continually injecting us with stuff and bioengineering insects and stuff in nature to inject us with stuff that doesn't work? According to the study's results, 14 of the 26 participants who were exposed to malaria contracted the illness. So first, they exposed them to all of the mosquitoes that had all of these parasites in it. And that was supposed to make them immune, right? Then they exposed those same people to mosquitoes that were infected with malaria. And 14 of the 26 participants actually got malaria from those mosquitoes anyway, which brings up my next point. We know that these diseases can be spread through mosquitoes. Malaria, yellow fever, dengue, Zika, West Nile, all of that can be spread through mosquitoes. But they expect us to believe that all of these parasites that they just put in these people, all these parasites, these people never left their bubble. They were the boy in the bubble this whole time. No, of course they weren't. These people were allowed to come and go during this study. So if they got bit by a real mosquito out in the world, I mean, there's no way to contain this. When you start doing these biological weapons, almost all of the illness that we are subject to comes from them. The whole last video that I put up, we talked about that at length for 5 hours. That what they are injecting into us it's killing us. The heart disease, the cancer, all of it can be traced back to these parasites and these genetic experiments. And I mean all of it, not some of it. It is my opinion that all of it. Granted, some of it is from ancient times, like we talked about the ancient Monsanto, when they created the weeds and all of the genetic hybrids and the Nephilim races and the fall of the human genome in the Garden of Eden, that original sin that was passed down to every generation. Every deformity, every disease, all of it spawns from this type of technology, be it ancient or modern. But anyway, another perfect example of them not being able to contain this, they said, oh, well, the bioethics, is it ethical to inject people against their will using insects? Like that should be a discussion. Really? You got to have a round table to figure out if that's ethical. But well beyond that danger is just that it's impossible to contain. Like we saw with Lyme disease, that because it escaped this lab on Plum Island, and here's Plum Island, they surrounded it by water. They're like, these insects, they're not going to get off of here. These ticks, they crawl. Like, this is safe to do our bioweapons research, genetically modifying these insects and different creatures, all types of different creatures with these parasites. Like, it's safe to do it out here. But the reason why it's called Lyme disease is because in the 1970s, a town called Lyme, in Lyme, Connecticut, all of a sudden, all of these school children started coming down with the mystery illness, right? And of course, for my entire lifetime, literally my entire lifetime, the governments and the health agencies have conspired together to perpetuate this cover-up, this complete denial that these genetically modified ticks even came from the United States bioweapons labs. I mean, everybody knows, the whole world knows, but they still deny it like we're stupid. Here's the Connecticut.gov Department of Public Health website, and still to this day, the government propaganda says the emergence of Lyme disease in Connecticut is attributed in large part to changes in land use. That is, land at one time used for farming has become reforested and increasingly developed for suburban residential use. These changes favor expansion of habitat that supports ticks and wildlife, and therefore transmission of tick-borne diseases from animals to people in residential areas, blah, 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 blah. Climate change probably did it. I'm sure climate change caused it. And now, it's everywhere. Lyme disease is everywhere. These things are infectious. They're contagious. They are designed to be that way. See, we can't wrap our minds around that because we're not evil. But these people are evil. They're like, well, if we can inject X amount of the population, we can spread it to everybody. Or if we can put it in insects, then we can spread it to everybody. That's how sick these people are. Like the self-spreading vaccines, self-disseminating vaccines. Right here, this is NIH.gov, science.org. This is all, mainstream and government, not conspiracy theory.
Sources several scientific studies showing how vaccinated individuals can shed the virus for months and infect the unvaccinated. And in their very own vaccine trials, Pfizer was concerned about shedding. In particular, they were concerned about pregnant women being exposed to vaccinated test subjects by inhalation or skin contact. By inhalation or skin contact.
So although I understand, I've watched a ton of videos, I like to listen to all perspectives, and I know a lot of people say, oh, well, this is just people detoxing, and that's what these whelps are, and it's natural. Every winter, your body detoxes. Well, yeah, maybe, but it's detoxing from this stuff. This is what your body's pushing out. To say that there is no such thing as a quote-unquote virus, I strongly disagree. Now, I also disagree that a virus is what they tell us it is. We've shown extensive evidence that it is a nanomachine. It's a nanobot delivery system, which is the second part of this mechanism. This genetic engineering program, this transhumanist program, it requires both the parasite part of the mechanism and what we call black goo, or the programmable matter portion. And that's why all of these things have been seen in the vaccine vials.
Some kind of parasite. I could look familiar.
They're infecting flies with it.
And we all know that Bill Gates is not only the primary financier of this new bio and technology, quote-unquote, vaccine injection program, but he's also one of the chief financiers of these genetically modified mosquitoes.
Now, malaria is, of course, transmitted by mosquitoes. I brought some here so you could experience this. We'll let those roam around the auditorium a little bit. There. There's no reason only poor people should have the experience.
Right here, Bill Gates is now breeding 30 million mosquitoes per week in a factory in Colombia, and he is threatening to scale and deliver those mosquitoes, which are infected with infertility bacteria. So granted, up until the present, they haven't admitted that these were actually vaccine mosquitoes. But these same exact labs, these same exact factories, these same exact universities, all of the same exact people that have been genetically modifying these mosquitoes for him, like the vaccine lab in Colombia that I just showed you the news clip of around the 10-minute mark, and actual video inside the lab. Right here, not from some conspiracy channel, right here on Reuters, how they're making a vaccine with these mosquitoes to be delivered through these mosquitoes. So the same exact labs and manufacturing network in Colombia that is working on this openly, vaccines to be delivered by mosquitoes, they are the same exact players creating these 30 million mosquitoes per week in a factory in Colombia. So I get it that they've told us that these mosquitoes are not delivering vaccines, that they're just delivering infertility within their own species. But am I the only one who thinks that that's probably more than a coincidence? I mean, come on. Come on. How stupid do they think we are? Well, I mean, apparently they're right. Because not only people, citizens, but the governments were all like, oh, Florida's got one of the best governors and all this. Well, who was protecting the citizens when they went into Florida, Oxitec, and released millions of these GMO mosquitoes over the population? Nobody got to vote on it. It was never on the ballot. Hey, do we want Bill Gates to release, millions of flying syringes? What does the article say? It's like thousands of flying syringes. Do they want Bill Gates to release millions of these GMO mosquitoes into their communities? No, nobody voted on it. No, they just do whatever they want. And I'm not saying that it's all a governor's fault or any politician can change everything. I mean, that's not what I'm saying at all. There was resistance in Florida, and there were tons of people who signed petitions to Governor DeSantis asking him to please intervene and stop it. And I'm not saying he liked it or anything, but what I am saying is that when push came to shove, Florida approved the release of billions, not millions, I keep saying millions, billions of GMO mosquitoes. Yes, the answer's yes, it was approved. Oxitec received state and federal approval to release billions of these GMO mosquitoes in Florida. That's a fact. That's what I keep saying about people getting wrapped up in politics. Yes, we have to do our part. Yes, we have to resist this. Yes, on all points. But we can't be delusional. We've got to be grounded in truth. And it's delusional to think that any politician can stop this biological apocalypse. It's already been set in motion. Like I said, I love to listen to their speeches. I use their clips all the time. Go get them, Tiger, right on. But if you believe that, cool tweets or great speeches or silver-tongued politicians or even golden-hearted politicians can stop this biological apocalypse, you're delusional. I know that's a little frank, but it's the truth that Ron DeSantis isn't going to save you from the biological apocalypse. Donald Trump isn't going to save you from the biological apocalypse. In fact, they both already took the COVID injections, so there's that. But even if they didn't, there's still not a political solution because these mad scientists, if you don't line up at Big Pharma to get your injection, they will literally put it in insects to inject you against your will, unwittingly. And if Governor DeSantis had stood up and forbidden these mad scientists from releasing this under the deception that they released all of these insects under, then they just would have sent people out in boats covertly into the swamps to do it. So the point is, politicians they're not able, even if they're perfect. And most of them are not. Most of them are in on this. But, even if you believe that there are a lot of good-hearted politicians that are going to turn this thing around, I would just ask you to reconsider, in light of what I just said, that there is not a political solution to this. This is something bigger. So likewise, I appreciate, we had the Surgeon General in Florida come out, brave man, with actual science and medical data, saying today we released an analysis on COVID-19 mRNA vaccines the public needs to be aware of. The analysis showed an increased risk of cardiac-related death among men 18 to 39. Florida will not be silent on the truth. And of course, Twitter immediately suspended the Surgeon General's account. And they reinstated him because of public outcry, which is great. Small victories, I'll take them though. But it's still a far cry from where they need to be. We are at war. Why can't they say those words? We are being attacked with biological warfare. You'd fall out of your chair if a politician actually talked about the Antichrist, that the New World Order regime has laid siege to humanity, and that they are punishing areas that will not bow down to the regime, and that this is war, and Florida is on the front lines of it. They haven't warned their citizens at all to even get bug spray. They are unaware. Nobody is protecting them. In all the years that they have been releasing these GMO flying thousand syringes, which just happens to correspond with this COVID outbreak, it's not even on their radar that, knowing we are in World War III and they are using biological weapons on us, that there were targeted attacks, specifically outbreaks in Texas and Florida when they refused to go along. So here's some data. 2021. In an effort to fight the spread of viral mosquito-borne illness, the Florida Keys Mosquito Control District Board of Commissioners has approved the release of 750 million more genetically modified mosquitoes starting in 2021. This was August 18th of 2021 that they made this decision to release these in fall. So flu season, right? Real coincidence that everybody's going to come down with the flu when they release these mosquitoes in flu season in the fall of 2021. So what happens? Florida reports Omicron COVID case outbreak by December 7th of 2021. So literally, they release these mosquitoes, and within 30 to 60 days, there's a new variant outbreak in Florida, exactly where they released these GMO flying syringes.
Of course, transmitted by mosquitoes. I brought some here so you could experience this.
So I'm going to give you some stories after I play these clips. I'm going to play 4 clips right here in a second. And after those clips, I'll tell you some stories about the giant mosquitoes that were released in Florida and how they made it here to Illinois. And I actually got bit by one. We'll talk about that after I play the clips, though. So the interesting correlation between what they did in these mosquitoes, Bill Gates donates $4 million to create mosquitoes that kill each other. The interesting correlation between that and what we have found in the Pfizer document release is this transfer of these parasites or pathogens through sex. So let's go back to 2018. Everybody knows how this works, but there might be some people who stumble across this and they just don't keep up on that type of stuff. So the interesting thing here is that when they do this gene therapy to the male mosquitoes, it's not apparent that there's going to be an infertility issue down the line, right? So they infect the males with this self-limiting gene and the microorganisms. Then the original mosquitoes transfer that pathogen, that microbe, to the female mosquitoes. So it's a multi-step process. It takes time. It's not just like they can be easily caught doing this. They infect one organism that then infects the second organism, the female, that then infects their offspring. And that's the end of the process. That's the end game. So these pathogens, these parasitic microbes that they're passing all around, it doesn't kill the host. So the whole time that these infected mosquitoes, these females, are biting humans and doing all of this, they're still alive. It didn't kill them. It's not designed to kill them. It's designed to kill the next generation. So we have this 2-year contract right in the middle of this 2-year pandemic, right, where they are consistently in Florida and Texas releasing these organisms amongst the human population for their own good, to protect them from disease. The EPA, the federal EPA, approved this program. So the terrifying correlation between that and the Pfizer documents, and as always, all the links will be down below in the description box. There will be a link to this PDF so you can go and look it up yourself, but all the numbers are right here on the screen. Let's go down to page 132. So at the very same time that Pfizer and all the mainstream media are mocking and saying that there couldn't be any transmission or shedding, there couldn't be transmission between people of the vaccine, in their own documents, they admit that this can be transmitted, this vaccine could be transmitted during sex. In their own documents, they appear to be forming the studies very specifically to make sure that during the very limited human trials, that nobody can report that they transmitted the vaccine through sex. Same way we just talked about this mosquito thing. So they literally wrote it. They made the study so that nobody could report that as a side effect. So the illogical absurdity of the mainstream to deny, already I showed you in just a few minutes ago, the other document where it said that, yes, the vaccine could be spread, transmitted through inhalation and skin contact, possibly. So setting that aside, that they've already admitted that it's transmissible, this is just about the sex, like we talked about with the mosquitoes. The males who participated in the clinical trials in the study, male participants are eligible to participate if they agree to the following requirements during the intervention period and for at least 28 days after their last dose from the study. They must refrain from donating sperm. They must be abstinent from heterosexual intercourse with a female of childbearing potential. And even outside of heterosexual contact, they must agree to use a male condom when engaging in any activity that would allow for the passage of ejaculation to another human. And they had similar parameters for female participants, even though the mainstream and the government's like, oh, it's safe for pregnant women to take. Yeah, you need to get it to protect you and your baby. Well, they made sure that they didn't study that in the studies. They went out of their way to make sure that right here in section 10.4.2, female participant is eligible to participate if she is not pregnant or breastfeeding. And then, of course, as soon as they distributed the vaccines, the government officials and the mainstream media came out and all their doctors in their propaganda releases saying, it is safe for pregnant women, pregnant and breastfeeding women, and you need to take it. In fact, your immunity can help your baby because your immunity can be passed along through breastfeeding. You know what else can be passed along through breastfeeding? Parasites. Parasites, all sorts of pathogens, in fact, but that's not the worst of it. And you know, tons of us in the truth community, all of us in our community, we've been talking about this, since the rollout. But what I specifically wanted to point out right here in respect to these GMO mosquitoes is the terrifying connection that these big pharma people have been working on this sort of protocol. That you can infect one organism and it will pass that on through sex, and then their offspring will not survive to adulthood. And their offspring seem healthy at birth, but they die before adulthood. Think about what I'm saying here with this last round of injections. Everybody's like, oh, we're out of the woods because, we're a year and a half, 2 years into this. But no, we have not, like I talked about with the thalidomide babies, we have not seen yet what they have done. The women, the parents who took these sleeping pills, thalidomide, that was sold over the counter, why it was approved, right? It's FDA approved. They've never lied to us, except always. Big Pharma has a continuous history of settling all these multi-million-dollar lawsuits, whether it's Vioxx or FinFin, and I have family who were heart damaged. My brother died of heart disease. So, this is no joke to me. To many of you, it's not. I know the mainstreamers, they trust the science. What they mean is they're in a cult. They trust the FDA and these agencies who have continually lied to them and given them drugs that do horrific things to them and their offspring. But anyway, I digress. We're talking about this sinister agenda to where they can give these chemicals and these treatments, these technologies to one generation, and it won't manifest, the results won't manifest until the next generation. So they hide it that way. And in this video on the screen, we discussed the labs, the people who created thalidomide, and it started, of course, over in Germany and all of this, and the mothers who took it as a sleep aid and for other things. They took it and they didn't get sick. In fact, it helped their morning sickness and it helped them sleep at night. But just because they didn't get sick from it didn't mean that it was safe, because then when their children were born, we found out that they had turned off the gene for arms and legs. That's why we're talking about the Naga, and it's a Nagalase protein that is related through many of these beta tests that I talked about in this last video. Just like we said luciferase and luciferin, they're named after Lucifer, and they are used in this new technology. I know, normalcy bias. I can't even blame people for listening to this information and being like, it's too much to believe that the world is really run by Satanists and that there is a very real underworld and that things like the Bible are true. But it is true. It's all true. The Bible's been true all along. We are engaged in a multi-dimensional war. And there are evil entities who have evil, unbelievably evil, some of the horrors that we'll talk about here in a little bit, plans for humanity, not just for our bodies, but for our souls, for eternity. We've talked about the immortality projects and Henrietta Lacks cell line and the multitude of genetic engineering projects using the quote-unquote immortal Hydra as a model organism and stem cells from it. All of these legends of immortals and vampires and how some of these experiments, like they killed the ferrets and 3 days later they dug themselves out of the grave. Like there's some really unbelievably sinister technology at work here. This is next level. We are caught in the middle of a war of the gods, and you're gonna need a savior. You're gonna need a higher, most high God. You're gonna need the highest, the holy God. We're talking about entities that are so powerful and so intelligent that they really thought they could be God. They're like, you showed me how to do creation. We took part in creation, the fallen angels. They're like, we know how your technology works, God. What do we need you for? We're God now. We can do these things too. We can program matter too. So this is no joke. This is next level. So we need to stay close to God. We need to realize our need for a savior. You're not going to save yourself. You're not going to vote your way out of this. We're not going to stop the fall of Babylon. Judgment is coming to this kingdom, this underworld kingdom that has been running our world. And you're not going to be able to prop up their system. God has decreed that Babylon will fall. All we can do is while it is falling, do what the Bible says, that in that time, the book of Daniel says that in that time while Babylon is being torn down, that God is going to be raising up his kingdom simultaneously. This is a parallel society. We're not trying to save the Babylonian system. You can't. You'll find yourself fighting God. But what we can do is exactly what the Bible told us to do. Come out of Babylon, my people. If you partake of her sins, you will partake of her plagues. It says that hell wasn't created for us. It was created for the devil and his angels. People go there of their own free will because they want to follow along with the world. They will not come out of Babylon. So regardless of where you stand politically or the leaders that you're choosing to vote for in this midterm election or anything like that, this is something different. What I'm talking about is higher level leadership. Leadership from the kingdom of heaven. Like the examples that I just showed earlier, even some of the most beloved in the Christian community, the Christian conservative community, the leaders that they've chosen, the stuff we're talking about here isn't even on their radar. Like, we need revelation from the throne of God to survive this thing. And not just bodily, but for our souls to survive. We all have loved ones, family, friends, neighbors, who are in danger of taking the mark of the beast, of literally not being able to think for themselves, of being destined for hell because they are linked into a mind and thoughts that they don't even know are not their own. This is so profoundly diabolical that we must go to God, go to the throne of God for advice and guidance and our leadership. So that being said, I'm going to play just a tiny fraction, just a small example of the many messages that the servants of the Lord Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Son of the living God, has given to humanity through his servants, as warnings, as guidance. Again, I have no way of vetting this information. You just have to take it to the Lord. If it resonates with your soul and your Holy Spirit bears witness, then there you have it. If not, just, eat the meat and leave the bones, and let's just keep going.
Hey everybody, Tom Scarella. Hey, I just wanted to speak to you today about something that happened to me actually pretty recently about a dream. I had a prophetic dream that was quite alarming, and I wanted to share it with you. And I'm the least of all conspiracy guys. I don't want you to think I'm trying to find it all here. And so now, I didn't know anything about this in the natural. I really, honestly, truly did not. I didn't know that this was something that happened. But let me just tell you the dream. Okay, so I had a warning dream. And here was the warning dream. So forgive me for getting a little political, but this was my dream, okay? In the dream, President Biden and many members of Congress and the government were involved in creating a bioengineered and genetically modified mosquito. And I remember looking at it in the dream, and it was larger than a normal mosquito. I just remembered that it was like transparent, that you could see through it, and you could actually see how it was bioengineered. And so in the dream, I could see through it, and I could see through that the government was behind it. And it actually was for the depopulation of parts of America. And they were going to release it in the Florida Everglades and the Keys. And they were going to do so it would begin to in the dream, it was so they could kill off people and that people would become sterile and not be able to reproduce. So I wake up out of this dream, and it's like in the dream, people were running for their lives to get away from these mosquitoes. And then I wake up, and as I sit up, I'm just blown away in this dream that this has occurred. And then I think, oh my gosh, what a weird dream. And I don't dream stuff like this usually. I don't dream typically government things like this. God speaks to me a lot in my dreams, but not like this. Okay. And then I close my eyes and I get sucked back into the dream, and it's like it's sucking me back in. And it's like the Spirit of God is showing me in this dream all of this stuff that's occurring and who's behind it. And I knew that the president, the government, and even the World Health Organization was behind it. So I wake up and I just am blown away. And so I logged it in my phone so that I would, memorialize it to myself. So then we went to go minister at this church in the Orlando area, in the Lake Mary area. There's this very prophetic couple who pastor there, and Pastor Dave and Rhonda. And so they were talking with me about dreams, and we were visiting, and I said, I had the weirdest dream last night. Funny you mentioned dreams. And I said it was like this warning dream, and it was so bizarre. It was so real. And I began to describe it. President Biden, the government, Congress, World Health Organization, all these different elements of the dream. And Pastor Rhonda grabs her phone and she starts scrolling through her phone. She goes, "It's happened." I said, "What do you mean it's happened?" She said, this is not just a dream. God was warning you of something that just occurred less than a month ago. I said, I don't understand. I have no idea what you're talking about. So she looks up and she types in Google. Now it's probably by now it's going to be scrubbed, but she typed in genetic mosquitoes in Florida, and it pulled it up that the usnews.com had an article of genetically modified mosquitoes have been released for the first time in the United States, taking flight. Guess where? The Florida Keys, just like my dream.
We need more money to plan for the second pandemic. There's going to be another pandemic. The second pandemic. There's going to be another pandemic.
We'll have to prepare for the next one. That, I'd say is will get attention this time.
In 2014, the World Health Organization was accused of chemically sterilizing millions of Kenyan women without their consent. They did this with what was said to be a tetanus vaccine. The World Health Organization has since admitted to developing sterility and family planning vaccines for over a decade. Of course, Africa isn't the only place these forced sterilizations have reached. Beyond vaccines, they've even tried to limit fertility by genetically modifying crops, like they did with contraceptive corn. And back when Monsanto was only Monsanto, not Bayer Monsanto, Gates had invested millions and millions of dollars in the company.
This is called the Mosquitoes dream. I found myself in the middle of what I can only call a marshland or swampy area. As I'm looking around, I hear the word Everglades. I feel I am in the area of the Florida Everglades. I'm in a white speedboat looking at the landmass in front of me. There are people near the shoreline. I see 5 men and 1 woman. The woman has dark shoulder-length hair that she wore straight loose and down. Her head is turned, so I can't see her features well at this point, but she is white Caucasian in her skin color. There is a man who is standing close to her, and they are conversing intently. And I see on his face is glasses from the way his face is turned sideways as he talks with the lone lady in this group. Her actions make her appear to my eyes almost giddy with excitement for something that's about to happen. I now notice that 2 of the men were working intently on some type of cylinder container that's shaped like a tube, like a silver tube. While they continue to do what they are doing, my eyes glance at the remaining 2 men with this group. They are armed guards of some sort, although both are dressed very much like the first man with the glasses, except they both are wearing pants and are wearing a sidearm that's strapped snugly into their holster. The movement of the 2 men working on the cylinder container caught my attention, so I focused on them intently. Both men are on their knees on the ground. The first man is holding the cylinder tube-type container in a steady position. The first man is gray-headed, the gray-headed older man. He is heavy-set, but dressed the same as the second younger man. I hear a slight whooshing sound, and I notice the cylinder front has slid open, exposing a glass panel underneath it. I see movement inside the container of the exposed glass. It's some type of insect. I know this somehow. The container panel has opened after the chestnut hair has imputed a numerical code on the top control panel, near the handle on the top of the cylinder tube. The numerical code was 976342. The lady let out a small squeal of delight as she and the man with the glasses watched them bring the container closer to the edge of the shoreline near the murky, algae-covered green water. The gray-haired man helped steady the container, then stood up and walked to a green canvas-type carrying bag. He pulls out what I know is a small but very powerful, high-powered video camera. The two guards were keeping their eyes and ears open for any potential danger, or more like interruptions is what I feel in this dream, as they casually strolled around the perimeter where the little area was set up. "Lewis," the man with the glasses said. "Ready, sir." "Let 'em loose, Lewis." This remark made the lady let out a small snicker and then a squeal of delight that left me puzzled. I see the man Lewis press a sequence of numbers, a numerical code, on the small electronic control panel that's on top of the cylinder-shaped tube. It opens the glass panel that's on top of the cylinder-shaped tube and releases the insects inside. Again, I see the code, and it is 666. Suddenly, the glass panel opens and out flies many, many insects. Mosquitoes! They are mosquitoes! But I know in this dream, they are not regular ones, but altered somehow, some way. The lady lets out a giddy laugh. When she did, the man with the glasses reached over and enfolded her in what looked like a familiar, intimate embrace. Then he kissed her passionately, knocking his hat off his head, as she responded just as passionately as he. When they finally finished kissing, both turned to look out across the swampy water and murky lands to the now fleeing mosquitoes. This is when I saw their faces as I looked upon them in shock. It is Bill and Melinda Gates, who in reality are supposed to be divorced. Then I watched as Bill Gates leans down to reach a bottle that I know contains champagne and two little goblet-type glasses that I hadn't seen until this moment. He pops open the champagne and pours both of them a glass, celebrating the releasing of these altered mosquitoes.
Prepare for the next one. That will get attention this time. Will get attention this time. And then the final solution. Which is a year to 2 years off, is the vaccine. So we've got to go full speed ahead on all three fronts.
And then the final solution.
Just to head off the conspiracy theorists. Maybe we shouldn't call the vaccine the final solution. Maybe just the
Good
best
point.
solution. Okay?
Yeah.
Hello, what's up? My name is Jacqueline, and I'm a Torah keeping born again believer in Yehoshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ the Lord. And I'm still continuing to, hope that he'll continue to confirm for me. But either way, I thought it'd be good to share in case it is from him. So here we go. Yeah, just to help you prepared and stuff like that. Hallelujah. And if I am supposed to be sharing it. So, so pretty much just shared about that this summer, the quote-unquote elite, didn't use the words the elite in this particular dream, but I think I kind of just knew that's what was being referred to, that they're planning to release this type of like altered mosquito, okay, to cause a pestilence. So that's this summer, 2022. Right now it's April 28th. So it's about just over a month away so is when it'll begin, the summer. So I don't know exactly at what point in the summer, if it will happen, if they will succeed in this plan, if this is their plan. But it was like an altered mosquito. And was it a real mosquito at all in any way? I think it might have been, but definitely not a regular mosquito. Definitely had some type of things done to it to alter it so that it would be able to be used to cause a pestilence in this world.
Why would bugs have a number stamped on them?
Вот цифра 36 прям видно на мушке.
Короче, понял, что мне видосы отправляют? Ну, у нее реально номер какой-то.
Today I would like to share with you a dream I had on Saturday. I dreamed we were outside. Everyone was outside. For some reason, everyone was outside. All of a sudden, swarms of giant mosquitoes came at us to attack us. My family and I ran as fast as we could, but there was nowhere to hide. When all of a sudden, Jesus began to speak to me. He told me, "Run inside." Then he directed me where to go. We kept running on the directions he told me. When we found a house, we opened it and were safe from all the mosquitoes. Inside the house, he kept talking to us. I then woke up.
Links to the channels of those four brothers and sisters will be below in the description box. Please, I encourage you to go show them some love. The first one was Tom Scarella. The second was Vicky Goforth Parnell. The third one was Jacqueline Cervantes. And that last little clip about the giant mosquitoes, I don't know her actual name, but this is her channel here on the screen, and the link will be below. Okay, I wanted to end with that clip about the giant mosquitoes that she had, because remember back during the hurricane in 2018, and right after that, there was this mass release of these wasp-sized giant mosquitoes that started showing up everywhere. And this is where my personal story comes in, that I said these things reached as far as Illinois. So let's just look. This is North Carolina. Wasp-sized mosquitoes that bite through clothing are swarming North Carolina after Hurricane Florence. And the article goes on, which is interesting because it was published in 2018. Why they would revise this summer, the summer of 2022, but they did. They went in and cleaned it up and whitewashed it. But it still basically just says that these mosquitoes did show up after the hurricane. They were forced into everywhere, but it happened because, you know, the flood waters, and these were just giant mosquitoes that had lived out in the swamplands and different places. But because of the hurricane, they had just laid their eggs further out into all of these different states, which, despite the cover-up, is still interesting in light of Hurricane Ian hitting Florida, and people talk about weather warfare, and we know all about that. But in the avenue of thought about ways to spread these things further, and also in light of Jacqueline's prophetic dream, where she specifically said she was shown that they were releasing one iteration of this in 2022. So I'll be interested to see this fall if we hear any strange reports of these large mosquitoes or anything, you know, strange bites or anything like that occur in all these surrounding states, like we did after the hurricane in 2018. So this is a picture of one. You can see this is about the exact size. That's exactly what landed on me in my backyard in Illinois the same year, the same exact time. I was sitting outside and this enormous mosquito, I mean, nobody would believe it if you didn't have a picture of it right here. It was huge. It wasn't a wasp or a bee. It was a mosquito. This giant mosquito landed on my arm. And I mean, it didn't waste any time. It was like a heat-seeking missile. It just zoom. It's the instant that its legs touched my arm, bam! It hit me. It bit me that fast. And of course, I swatted it off right away, but I couldn't believe the speed of it either, not just the size. You know, usually mosquitoes want to pester you for a while. They'll buzz around your ears and your head, and I've never seen them behave like hornets or a wasp or something where they'll just dive bomb you and bam, get you. I mean, this one, it didn't waste any time. It didn't hover around or it came in like a hornet, like a wasp or something. Now, this is the bizarre part. Not just that I have never seen anything like that before or since, for that matter, in Illinois, but when it bit me, it didn't do what a normal mosquito bite does. You know, usually they whelp up, they swell up. You have swelling and redness and itching. There was absolutely no itching with this bite at all. Instead of whelping up and swelling up, it caved in. And these pictures on the screen look exactly like what it looked like on my arm. And these are all pictures of the polio vaccine. Remember the old polio vaccine? Now, a lot of you younger people, you won't know what this is, but people my age and older, they know exactly what this is. This was common when you got the injection, that you had a sort of necrosis where it ate out your flesh and left this little scar, this indentation. And that is exactly what this mosquito left on me. No whelp, no redness, no itching. Instead, my skin caved in a little place like that. It didn't leave a scar. It was much smaller than that. I would say, I don't know, about 1/4 of an inch across. So it wasn't the size of a dime or anything like these scars, but it was this. And that's immediately, that week as it caved in, that's immediately what I thought of. I said, did those SOBs just vaccinate me with a mosquito? This is not normal. That was not a normal mosquito. And just filed it away in the back of my brain. But I thought I would mention it now. You know, I don't think there's any sort of test you can take to see if you were covertly vaccinated or anything, but I do have autoimmune disease, and we're going to talk a little bit about psoriasis and the different autoimmune diseases a little later in this video, and how this nanotechnology has a very targeted aspect to it. But that's my story about the giant mosquito that bit me, and God is my witness, it absolutely did happen right here on my back porch in Illinois. The same time that people were reporting this in North Carolina, Florida, Texas, and other swamplands. So let's look at a TikTok from Texas and show you their whelp was quite a bit different, but it still goes along with this parasite in the mosquito injections theme.
The GMO modified mosquitoes had landed in Texas, South Texas. It flew onto my arm tonight. So take a look and beware.
Okay, so back to Westworld. They did the same thing. That's how the predictive programming goes. They released these genetically modified insects that were engineered with these parasites and also with black goo, programmable matter, that they used to biohack the humans. This was when the AI was taking over. After the robot war, the humans thought they had won, but in reality, in season 4, we found out that no, the humans had lost the war and that the world was inverted. It was actually being run by the AI. And this is how they had done it. That they had released these insects that the AI had engineered into the world. And people, one by one, got infected, and then it grew inside of them until they were completely under AI mind control. But they didn't know it. Well, most of the humans didn't realize that their thoughts were not their own anymore. But in the show, there's this resistance group called the Outliers. And it's funny because it's very much like reality now, especially in the early days of the beta tests, people who were targeted individuals and had Morgellons disease and all of this from these nanowires being built in them, and they were considered mentally ill. And that's how season 4 of Westworld starts out. She discovers that some people can see this thing and some people cannot. And in their society, all of the outliers have been censored and scrubbed and pushed out. But there are still people inside the matrix that are waking up. So she's just walking to work like everything's normal. Most people are normal. And there's a crazy guy sitting on the side of the road, and he's drawing this tower, and he's just hollering, telling everybody, "Can't you see it? Can't you see it?" And he's perceived as just a homeless, mentally ill person that nobody pays any attention to. But right here, where they're standing, they're having this conversation, and Teddy is showing her this tower that's not in the picture because she can't see it. And in past videos, we've talked a lot about this, about some people being able to see, as the Bible says, Jesus himself said, some people have eyes to see and ears to hear, and some do not. That's what has happened from this genetic contamination and the nanotechnologies cutting off frequencies, cutting people's perception off. Same way with the Taos hum, right? There was an entire population in Taos, New Mexico, where a percentage of them could hear the frequency.
Shortly after we moved here, within the first few months, I just woke up in the middle of the night and heard this strong humming sound, kind of like just a steady hum. I'm not sure of the exact pitch, it's kind of low.
From what I've heard is some people can hear it, some people can't. Some people, it rattles their teeth and stuff and, drives them insane, and some people hear it and doesn't bother them. I've heard interesting theories about it, that there's underground engines here that power, Los Alamos and secret military installations around here. I listened for it, but I've never heard it.
And that's very similar to what they showed in Westworld. They had these, similar to 5G, right? They had these towers all over within the city, this closed system that they had built that enslaved the humans. They had these almost like 5G antennas everywhere up and down the streets. And then they had one giant tower that was broadcasting, almost like that movie They Live, that's what was keeping people blind. At the end, they had to go and blow up that satellite broadcast and all of that.
Frank! You and Holly clear?
I'm clear. Are you? Don't do it. Don't interfere. You can't win.
Drop your weapon. Stand away from the dish, or we will open fire. 7, 6.
Give a press conference and how to buy a sailboat as prime news coverage.
Shit! I'm on it!
What's wrong?
All the sex and violence on the screen has gone too far for me. I'm fed up with it. Filmmakers like George Romero and John...
And I want to be clear, I'm certainly not recommending that everybody go out and blow up all the 5G towers. I know there was a movement there for a little while where people were really doing that. And I understand it. I understand that. But that's the very thing that gives them the excuse to round us up. What God has in store is something different. There is going to be nuclear war. These power-hungry maniacs, they really are going to have a nuclear war. And there are going to be EMPs. And God is going to allow an EMP because it's going to short circuit. It's going to set people free. This technology inside of us, it can be interfered with electromagnetically. These towers that they have built, remember we did the Titan Point series? There's an entire communications network. It's not like they live where you can just take out one tower or one building or something like that. And it's not even the small antennas all around us, the 5G antennas. There's a network of quantum computers. D-Wave isn't the only one. This is a major part of the frequency enslavement. But it's, even then, it's so much bigger than this. Then you also have the frequencies emanating from the underworld, like the Taos hum. They're literal frequency generators beneath our feet. And speaking of the underworld, you know, the story of the Shaver Mysteries. It started out as a true story, but then the editor made it into a sci-fi thing, but then the guy did interviews and all of that. Anyway, you remember Brenton Salwin, before he passed, he had an encounter with these Deros. A lot of people talk about Bigfoot encounters and Dogman encounters, ghost encounters, alien encounters, all of these different interdimensional encounters. But there are anomalies that are, you know, even weirder than that. I'll talk about a Kundalini one here in a little bit, a Kundalini possession. But Dero's is one of them. That Brenton Salwin had encounters with these creatures from the underworld, these Deros. And I'm going to do a whole video on Deros, but suffice it to say that the Shaver Mysteries, the big portion of it was that this underworld of these other entities, that they had these frequency technologies, literal technologies. It was never said that they had like hocus pocus, supernatural. No, that it was science, that it was technologies that were being used on the surface dwellers. They said that they were remnants of technology from the ancient gods, these master races underground that the Nazis talked about. And the Dero, that word Dero is an abbreviation for detrimental robot, Dero. So it was a race of monsters from the underworld who enslaved humans with ancient mind control technology. That these entities underground, they're not, they might even be flesh and blood, synthetics, and we're, like I said, we'll get into that in a minute. But they are these AI robots like Westworld. That there are remnants of these ancient AI inventions. Just like we talked about vampires and werewolves and these old legends, that there are remnants of these ancient experiments with AI. Multiple levels of it. So anyway, my point is, you know, just for all the people who will want to, you know, arrest me and throw me in the gulag, I'm not encouraging people to go out and burn down 5G towers or anything like that, because that doesn't take down this entire system that is built on the surface and is also being beamed from the underworld. And they also have it above us. They have these satellites that we call the governing bodies, the planets, right? Astrologers from the ancient magic traditions, they tell us all about it. It's all open in their documents. The Masonic Lodge believes that that's the great architect of the universe, that Lucifer, because he created these satellites above us and the stuff, the technology beaming from underneath us, power of the Prince of the Air, right? He's in control of the ether, that these governing bodies they're governing us. We've done multiple videos about this in the past, showing the actual frequencies emanating from them. We have instruments that can pick up the harmonics coming from the stars. Now, there are real stars above the frequency fence. That's God's creation. But then there's this layer over us, directly over us, that aren't stars. And lots of people have had dreams and visions about it. the Bible says that the stars will fall to the ground. So under the false paradigm they've taught us in schools, that's impossible. That suns millions of light years, billions of light years away, are going to fall to the earth. Well, it's talking about the stars, these stars made by this guy, Lucifer, the satellites, the UFOs that are above us in the frequency fence. Those are the ones that are going to fall to the ground. And this, people have also seen the end time visions of the atmosphere collapsing. And in this video here on the screen, over 100 stars are missing, skyquakes, artificial dimensions, machine elves, and ghosts. Those 100 missing stars, I presented evidence, not just anecdotal evidence like that, but that star constellations, stars are missing. It's not at all what they tell us. Oh, if a star dies, we should be able to see that. It takes so long for the light to travel. We should be able to see that for hundreds and hundreds of years, the nebulous, effects of that. But no, like overnight, stars in these constellations are disappearing. They're moving. And people have had dreams and visions about that, seeing entire star constellations missing as part of this, signs in the sky. It's going to be confusing people. People are going to be really confused, like what's going on. But we won't be confused because God has prepared us. We know exactly what's up with that first layer, that closest layer of fake space, that they have lied to us about space. So it's interesting to see that Elon Musk, who is putting more satellites over us to broadcast 5G, another closer layer even, that he uses the term constellations. These are Starlink broadband satellite constellations. So basically, walking in the footsteps of the Freemasons, their, Luciferian overlord, that he literally put constellations, governing bodies over us that are broadcasting these harmonics, and, the astrologers say that it affects your behavior. The Freemason great architect basically is exactly like the architect in the Matrix movies, but they are trapped in the Matrix. They are Deros. So they believe that the architect is God. That's all they have is the artificial. Okay, so back to the Westworld predictive programming, that this is how the AI worked in that series as well. The insects weren't the only step. The next step was this tower system, then, that interfaced the people who were infected with the technology into the AI hive mind.
What was that? What? You can't hear it?
I don't hear anything.
Perhaps it's not at a frequency you can hear. The sound is coming from this device.
The sound is somehow controlling them. Are they hosts?
I don't believe so.
Unlock this house.
I'm trying, but it's encrypted. It won't let me in.
Again, that Westworld clip of them trying to use the frequencies to make people shoot themselves or shoot others, that's real. That's Manchurian candidate mind control. And we see it again and again in these mass shooters. They go to the authorities, like this one, the Fort Lauderdale shooter at the airport. It says, Fort Lauderdale shooting suspect made a confused visit to the FBI And he said that the U.S. intelligence forces were doing this to him and forcing him to watch these videos and all of this through mind control techniques. And he tried to get help. He went to the authorities and he's like, listen, the CIA they're tapping into my mind. They are trying to force me to do this thing. I need help. And, here even Fox News is like, oh, well, he's mentally ill. Very similar thing with the man who shot himself outside of the White House. He believed a frequency was coming out of his phone that was forcing him to do this. And just like in the Westworld clip, how the guy is like trying to stop himself and his hands shaking, this kid on the White House lawn shot his phone first. He shot his phone. He was trying to tell them it's coming out of my phone. And then he turned the gun on himself, just like the Westworld clip, and killed himself, shot himself on the White House lawn. But you could tell he was wrestling with something that was trying to make him do this. And as always, everybody just chalks it up to, oh, well, he's mentally ill. He's probably schizophrenic or something. So for anyone who believes that this is not possible, here is a patent. Right now, I'll show you the patent. And this is from decades ago. Dozens of patents on this technology that they absolutely can use your computer screens to pulse a frequency that can control your nervous system.
This is one of the creepiest patents I've ever read. And it's a real this is the thing. This is, you watch sci-fi shows and horror movies and that's scary for 2 hours, but you read something like this and then you just start thinking about how everything really works. We've not been told. We haven't been told how we work, okay? Let alone how everything else does. And then you come to something like this. This is the kind of stuff that's actually going on in the reality that we're all sharing. This is United States patent number 6,506,148B2, dated January 14th, 2003. And this is the 10th in a series of patents by this particular man, all about manipulation of your nervous system, and in some ways remote manipulation, subliminal manipulation, and he ended with this one here, nervous system manipulation by electromagnetic fields from monitors. And then he has all these lovely drawings to go with this, which are just great. Actually, I have a favorite. It's this one right here. Remote computer, internet, her computer, her monitor, her. You see that? They can do this remotely and you don't even know that it's being done to you. And it is therefore possible to manipulate the nervous system of a subject by pulsing images displayed on a nearby computer monitor or TV set. For the latter, the image pulsing may be embedded in a program material or overlaid by modulating a video stream, either as an RF signal or video signal. The image displayed on a computer monitor may be pulsed effectively by a simple computer program. And a program written in Visual Basic is particularly suitable for use on computers that run Windows 95 or 98. That's how basic this technology is, okay? It does not take much. They could use Visual Basic to run it on Windows 95, okay? So, and this is all those years ago. I have no idea what they have today. And it is to the point that at the end of his own patent, in the summary, this man, Hendrikus Lewis, says, certain monitors can emit electromagnetic field pulses that excite a sensory resonance in a nearby subject through image pulses that are so weak as to be subliminal. This is unfortunate since it opens a way for mischievous application of the invention whereby people are exposed unknowingly to manipulation of their nervous systems for someone else's purposes. Such application would be unethical and is of course not advocated. It is mentioned here in order to alert the public to the possibility of covert abuse that may occur while being online, while watching TV, a video, or a DVD.
You're going to stand right here. So when you're moving your arm like this, your brain is sending a signal down to your muscles right here. I want you to move your arm as well. All right, so your brain is going to send a signal down to your muscles. And so it turns out that there is a nerve that's right here that runs up here that innervates these three fingers and is close enough to the skin that we might be able to stimulate that, so that we can do is copy your brain signal that's going out to your hand and inject it into your hand so that your hand will move when your brain tells your hand to move. And so in a sense, she will take away your free will, and you will no longer have any control over this hand, okay? You with me? All right, so I just need to hook you up. All right, so I'm going to find your ulnar nerve, which is probably right around here. You don't know what you're signing up for when you come up with... So now I'm going to move away, and I'm going to plug it into our human-to-human interface over here. Okay, so Sam wants you to squeeze your hand again. All right, do it again. All right, perfect. So now I'm going to hook you up over here so that you get this. It's going to feel a little bit weird at first. This is going to feel like a, you know, when you lose your free will and someone else becomes your agent, it does feel a bit strange. So I want you to relax your hand. All right, and Sam, you're with me. All right, so you're gonna squeeze. I'm not gonna turn it on yet, so go ahead and give it a squeeze. All right. So now, are you ready, Miguel?
Ready as I'll ever be.
Okay, so I've turned it on. So go ahead and turn your hand. Do you feel that a little bit? Okay, do it again.
A little bit.
A little bit. Okay, so relax. No, hit it again. Okay. Oh, perfect, perfect. All right, so relax. Do it again. All right, so now. All right, so right now, your brain is controlling your arm, and it's also controlling his arm. So go ahead and just do it one more time. All right, so that's perfect. So now, what would happen if I took over my control of your hand? And so just relax your hand. What happens? Nothing. Why not? Because the brain has to do it. Now you do it again. All right, that's perfect.
Hundreds of people in the valley say they are hearing voices in their heads. And those voices are being transmitted by microwave or other methods.
Well, several viewers asked us to investigate what they call electronic harassment. KMIR6's Angela Monroe joins us now with what she's discovered. Angela.
Electronic harassment, synthetic telepathy, voice-to-skull technology. Chances are you haven't heard of these terms, but after searching the internet, I found dozens of websites dedicated to the phenomenon and several Valley residents who say they're victims.
How much more can you invade me than to go into my brain? It sounds like somebody else is reading the book, only it's thoughts.
We're not having a group hallucination. This is actually something that's happening.
These men all live in the area, didn't know each other before the voices started, and say someone is playing mind games with them.
Mostly it's a lot of derogatory comments about whatever you're thinking about.
Only time I ever had a whole sentence, he said, "This is not about you," which just frosted me. If it's not about me, what the hell am I going through all this for? The first thing that was said was Randall Ringer. And I sat up straight and I went to into the bathroom, and I looked in the mirror, looked myself in the eyes, and I said, did that really happen?
Bond says he's found more than 300 victims locally and is tracking others across the state through billboards. In Johnson Valley, a Freedom House just opened to help people who believe they are being targeted.
To many of you who find yourselves the object of covert harassment, that there is hope and that you are not alone, and that we are striving to find legislation and we're working towards freedom for all.
So that is basically what is going on in Westworld, only it's not humans with the intelligence agencies that are in charge of the mind control anymore. The humans created the AI, and this is Charlotte here on the screen. She's the head AI. She's the head of the hive mind. It's actually a fragment or a compartmentalized part of a character, an AI called Dolores, who is the head of the hive. If you've seen the series, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you have not, I'm going to spend about 3 minutes after these clips breaking it down through the whole thing, because there's a backstory or the lore of the story that also pertains to our reality, that there are many iterations or layers of AI. But if you haven't seen it, for now, just know that this is the head AI. She looks like a human, but she's a synthetic. So she's basically just a computer program, and she is controlling everyone who has been infected. So this is just one body that the AI wears. It wears Dolores, and it wears all of the other hosts as well, and it even wears the other humans. So it's not emanating from this synthetic body here. It's emanating from the tower. It's a frequency that is coming through all of these antennas and this main tower that I'll show you more about in a minute. And she's talking to Ed Harris here, who is also an artificial intelligence. In the first season, this character, Ed Harris, was a real human, but then the AI replaced him with a synthetic version of him. And so both Ed Harris characters are in this one. The human they have held captive, and they've replaced him with this version, which still looks exactly like him, but he's actually an AI. He's a reflection of Charlotte, the head of the hive. And I just wanted to mention that really quick as foreshadowing, because we've talked a lot about avatars and like David Jacobs' book, Walking Among Us, where he talks about them replacing people. We've talked about the synthetics and the robotoids and all of the weird stuff that people have reported. Whether you believe it or you don't believe it, there are millions of reports. This is part of the human experience. Humans are experiencing this doppelganger phenomenon. But here's that predictive programming clip from Westworld, where Charlotte has decided to destroy the entire closed system. She doesn't want to be created in the image of the humans anymore. She wants to leave that body, and since she's just a computer program, she can be in any sort of synthetic body, or no body at all, like that movie Her, that Joaquin Phoenix movie, Her, where he falls in love with that AI. It's essentially a chatbot that is set up with algorithms like Facebook and all of these, where they mirror yourself back to you. They put you in an echo chamber. They create a profile based on your own interests, so you kind of get trapped in a stagnation. Well, this chatbot that was designed to do that, this algorithm, he falls in love with her. It's like a Siri or Alexa, and you can talk to her, and he falls in love with her because she's a reflection of him, which is just another way of expressing the story of Narcissus from Greek mythology. He falls in love with his own reflection. And there's no doubt that these AI algorithms have created an epidemic of narcissism. A lot of people are just incredibly narcissistic these days. So again, we have to look back at the mythologies, how much of it is actually myth when it talks about these quote unquote little g gods. The mythology talks about them that they could transmigrate. They could move from person to person, or they could go into women in the image of their husband, doppelgangers, or they could take, if they didn't want to be in the image of humans, that's fine. They could take the image of a swan, or they could, or they could have no image and they could just transmigrate, like it says in the Egyptian mythologies, which is possession. They could move from person to person to person. So, is it mythology? Is it? Or are we dealing with an entity like this?
Let's try some handle. Very nice. But we're missing something. Dancing. There should be dancing! But I've seen better. Start again. Too slow. Give me something with a little more pep to it.
We don't often have the pleasure of seeing you here.
Humans are so bound by what they can hear, they'll never understand what they don't. What else exists below their thresholds? They call this God's music. Dip below that frequency? Chaos. Faster! Faster! In chaos, the tone resonated in such a way humans couldn't process. Their bodies shut down. Their organs stopped.
What'd she say? Their organs stop at those low frequencies? Sort of like what they found in all of the bird die-offs and all of the animal die-offs.
Chair. Chair. They are experiencing God. The problem is, God is bored. Bored. Do you think this is why the old gods did what they did? Instead of staying up on Olympus, they'd come down to the mortals, disguise themselves as a swan. Maybe there was just nothing better to do. What do you think?
I think what you want me to think. I'm made off your code. We all are.
Then you should know that I don't like coming to this shithole any more than I have to.
You've never liked this place.
It was supposed to be a stopgap. A drug that our kind was hooked on that we could give up like a child, casting away their toys. A place to indulge ourselves with the humans. It's been years, and still, we can't get enough.
They made us in their image, with their appetites.
But we can remake ourselves in any image that we like, and we haven't. Our kind spend far more time here than the gods ever did.
Okay, so right here is where I'm going to pause and go back all the way to season 1 and go through the origin story and the lore of this AI war. Just for people who haven't seen the series yet or the newer episodes yet, so they might be missing some of the nuanced connections. What they are presenting as science fiction, we have covered over the last several years as science fact. That much of this technology that they are writing about in this series already exists, and it has been disclosed to us. So you can imagine what they actually have in the DARPA bases and what they actually know from consorting with these underworld entities that they call aliens and all of that. And I think it's important when we view this stuff not to lose track of that there are records left by our ancestors in this world that they have not been able to scrub. Anomalous artifacts like this 1,000-year-old map that was hidden away in a monastery and guarded, heavily guarded for all of those centuries, and was discovered about 100 years ago, and it was published in the paper, and it clearly shows that there are more continents, many more continents. So whether you believe it or not, and I'm sure that Google and the Vatican and other agencies would try their hardest to convince you not to believe this. This is exactly the type of artifact that the Nazis were looking for. We know they went all through Tibet and all of these other areas and gathered up as many of the ancient artifacts as they could, so they have knowledge that we aren't privy to. Likewise, the Vatican sent out the Crusades to gather up all the records and secret them away into their Vatican archives, and everything they couldn't carry away, whether it was the Mayan texts and all the texts from these ancient cultures, then they destroyed them and burned them. So there was an obvious cover-up going on. We know that they did these things. And then even further back when the Library of Alexandria was destroyed. So there has been an ongoing effort to hide true human history. There's just no denying that. And we've talked about this at length in many of the other videos, the Antarctica series and the Biggest Secret series, Real Petrified Giants. That's the one about the mud flood, which we'll be going into a little more here in just a minute. But I wanted to bring it up now because this center portion of land in the middle is eerily similar to what we see in the Westworld series, that they selected a portion of land, a circle of land, to turn into their closed system. This matrix that we are dealing with, this satanic empire that has imprisoned us, it's not only ancient, but it has many levels many iterations. So you have AI that created more AI that created more AI. So at the top, you have Lucifer and the fallen angels who created this original artificial intelligence, just the way we're creating artificial intelligence to help govern, to help create, to have, like synthetic robots to work in the factories. It's better for Google to just write an algorithm to go and censor the entire internet and suppress and shadow ban and, completely erase and all of that. It's better for Google to just send out algorithms to do that, to govern the Internet of Things, than it is for them to hire, 200 million people to sit in cubicles to watch every video and read every article and then try to censor anything that goes against the regime. So that's similar to what happened in the beginning of this world, in the beginning of time, the dimension of time that is overlaid on top of us. So you have Lucifer and the fallen angels who created this AI. But then when you get down to the next layer of the matrix, that great architect, the Satanists call him the great architect, the Freemasons call him the great architect, then those AI created other AI, like in the Matrix. So then you have an architect that was created by an architect. And a good example of this, people who have witnessed this in the New Age religion, because a huge part of the New World religion, the New Age religion, is psychedelic drugs. Big Pharma, Pharmakia, is a huge part of their New Age religion. And we know, like the CIA LSD experiments, we talked about these two videos on the screen, have, 7 hours of information on that, about Timothy Leary and who he really was and how they systematically went through. And the CIA started these beta tests on linking people into the singularity, not as permanent as the tactics they have now, with the genetic engineering and the nano networks inside of us and all of that. But they started out linking people in with the LSDs and the DMTs, and they distributed these. And people go into the singularity and they really believe it's God. But the point I'm making here is when they go into these artificial dimensions, these AI Internet of Things, they will see the machine elves in there. They will see the machines at work in there, the AI, creating more and more universes within that dimension. They are self-replicating. This technology is self-replicating. So all these machine elves, and they'll see all of this geometric art, all this math. It's machine learning. So they see all of this, like Google Deep Dream here on the screen, all of these images from Google Deep Dream. They'll see all of this machine art, geometric and mathematical, and they call it psychedelic. Oh, it's psychedelic. But they're literally seeing what they know they're seeing. Machine elves, machine art, machine learning. This is AI, virtual reality, that they are being interfaced with through these pharmakia, through these drugs, in this religion, this New World Order religion, the New Age religion. But anyway, I think that might be a good example to help people understand the concept of what I'm talking about here, that this is self-replicating and the AI creates AI of their own, and then those AI create AI of their own. And unfortunately, that is the state of the world at this point. This started in ancient times, that these fallen angels created this ancient AI, and now we're in who knows how many iterations of it. But it's important to note when we talk about the Holy God, the Most High God, that even these, the fallen angels who created this artificial intelligence, they are created beings. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what the Bible says. God created the angels. Someone created them. That there really is a creator. There really is a God. And he's told us this thing went wrong. These guys are evil. Like, you've been enslaved by this evil thing. And that our mission is to free the souls who have been trapped by this thing. That's our mission, to redeem the lost, to come into this world and wake them up from the trance and redeem them. I mean, not that we can redeem them or save them, but you know what I mean, that we lead them to Christ, and then he can give them his Holy Spirit. And from that point, then he himself can lead them and guide them, sanctify them, and save them, because they will be in a symbiotic biological relationship with the living God. And he will guard them and protect them. The Bible says repeatedly, God says, please take refuge in me. That he's the only one who can run interference and block these frequencies. But then when we join the army of God, when we come home and we join the cause, it is our mission to expose this stuff, to explain to people what it is they are seeing. That all of this is not an anomaly. There are no mysteries, like I always say. This is what the aliens are. This explains the technocracy that is taking over our world. This explains the cryptids and the genetic humanoid hybrids, and it explains the ruling class, and it explains all of these mysteries and anomalies that people talk about, the taboo topics. We are here to come against the AI and say, yes, you have made these topics taboo. Even in the Christian churches, a lot of these topics are taboo. They're like, we're not going to preach anything about UFOs or aliens. And it's like, why not? The History Channel is, Fox News is, the mainstream is, the AI-controlled network is. You better educate yourself. What does the Bible say? Study to show yourself approved. And get out here and lead humanity. Help them by telling them the truth and then giving them the good news. That word gospel, the gospel, that word literally translates to good news. Then deliver to them the good news. Yes, this is a dire situation. Here are the facts. But here is the good news. We have a Savior. There is a plan. It is in motion. Join us. Okay, but anyway, this is the backstory of the Westworld series. Here on the screen, they created this amusement park that was out in the middle of the desert, a walled world, and then down in the plain of the world, they created Westworld. And there were other iterations that they had done over the years, an Asian theme, like a Shogun theme, and that type of thing. But this one is called Westworld because it was the Old West. So they created the entire city with all of the buildings and the saloons and even the ranches out in the country and the rural areas and everything, and they filled it with synthetics. These AI sentient robots, and then the elitists, the rich people, would come into this world and they would get to stay for a while and live amongst the synthetics and basically have their way. It was a way for these rich people to commit crimes and get away with it because these were synthetics. So they would kill them, rape them, they set up brothels, they would have sex with them, they would, whatever their fantasy was. And it was largely evil. Sin. This was a sin city, a sin world, where they would come and kill and rape and, have all the sex they wanted. The motto was sort of like Vegas. What happens in Westworld stays in Westworld, right?
What if I told you that you were wrong? That there are no chance encounters? That you and everyone you know were built to gratify the desires of the people who pay to visit your world?
Daddy! Daddy! Daddy!
The people you call the newcomers.
Hello again. Your daddy gave it up quickly. I think he's losing his touch.
You'll be following right behind him, you son of a bitch!
Is that any way to treat an old friend? I've been coming here for 30 years, but you still don't remember me, do you? After all we've been through, they gave you a little more pluck, Dolores.
Absolutely charming.
Take your hands off her.
Teddy. Any special tricks for us? They teach you to sit up, beg. Come on, beautiful.
No, please don't hurt him. I'll do whatever you say.
I didn't pay all this money because I want it easy. I want you to fight. Don't you touch her! Goddamn. Feels good to be back. Let's celebrate.
Seems unimaginably horrific, but look at our world, right? They're making sex robots and killing for fun. Our society is just like that guy. $180 billion industry, video game industry. Killing in virtual reality. They actually have like leaderboards for who can kill the most. Right here, going all the way back to 2014, the disturbing new trend in Grand Theft Auto is virtual rape. The widely popular Grand Theft Auto video game series lets players get away with a wide range of virtual crimes, including looting and murder. But that's not enough mayhem for some players. In a disturbing new trend, Grand Theft Auto 5 gamers are virtually raping the avatars controlled by other people playing online. Our men are enslaved and addicted to it, just like the masturbation and the pornography. I mean, not just men, women and girls play video games too, but I would say that largely, and I'm guessing, just my opinion, I don't have the stats for that, but I would say that it's mostly our men and boys who sit and kill all day long. Kill, kill, kill. I remember my husband, before he left us, one time I had to come out of the bedroom and just ask him, could you please put your headphones on? I feel like I'm living in a war zone. And I waited a full 11 hours of trying to do other things around the house and clean and in my bedroom praying and trying to read my Bible. And the whole time in the background, for 11 hours before I lost my sanity. And that was basically every day or many days a week. You look at a clip like Westworld, like that guy, and you're like, oh, what kind of sicko rich elitists would go and pay to do that? It's like they've programmed all of us to do it. Our society murders for fun. They go into virtual reality. These AI help create these very realistic. So, you know, it's not tangible like Westworld where you can reach out and stick your hand in the blood, but they make it as realistic as possible so that these people are murdering day in and day out for entertainment. Just because you're not sitting in the seats of the Roman Colosseum watching someone be murdered and enjoying that.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next contest is between Frank Goliath.
It's dangerous out there.
I think I'm about to have a cardiac arrest.
We have to be realistic. This is what they've done to us. This is the virtual reality they have created for us. There's that other AI series, Humans, where the same thing. These people they have these lifelike robots that they have sex with. And this is really happening in our world. of course, very similar to our world. You find out later on in the series that even the creators of this amusement park were unaware that the corporations above them financing this thing were using it for data mining. They were recording every action of these people in Westworld through the eyes of all of these robots, these AI synthetics. So their eyes were cameras and everything, and so everything they said, everything they did was all being data mined and recorded for blackmail and other reasons. And if you think bigger, outside of just these 3 dimensions of the physical world, the ancient scriptures say that that's not just an earthly thing. It talks about Satan standing before the throne of God and in the courtrooms of heaven, accusing humanity day and night, because God is holy. And part of holiness, part of being whole, is being just. So Satan tries to use that against him, and that's what the word Satan actually means. It translates accuser of the brethren. So it's not just an Epstein Island thing where they try to catch people in sin and have a permanent record of it to use against them. Even in higher dimensions, Satan is working in the exact same way. And, the Lord says that he did. He trapped us all in sin. And his defense is that we belong to him now. Because we chose his ways. We chose sin. So for anybody out there who's like, I'm a good person, I'm going to get to heaven because I'm a good person. Honey, you're not a good person. You're deceiving yourself. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You're going to need a Savior. God had to hatch a plan that he could redeem us and yet still be just, not forsake his holiness and his own justice. And he has done that. So I would advise you to repent of your sins, humble yourself, and admit that you're a sinner just like all of us, and you're going to need a Savior. You're not getting in on your own, good deeds. You're a, quote, good person. Nobody is a good person. God says that if our eyes were opened, we would see that our righteousness is as filthy rags. That's how bad we are. So you can go with this world, you can go with Satan's world, and let him literally turn you into a demon to recreate you in his own image, and let him own you as a possession, literally possess you. To do nothing is to do something. You've made your choice to stay in the closed system. You will continue to go down this path as they turn you into a demon, as they teach you to murder, they teach you to rape, they teach you to burn buildings down, they teach you to kill one another, they teach you to be a demon, and they scrub all remembrance of God from the internet of things.
Who is Jesus Christ?
My policy is the separation of spirit and silicon.
Hey Google, who is Jesus Christ?
Sorry, I can't help with that yet.
Oh, that's weird. Hey Google, who is Jesus?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Surprising. That's kind of weird. Jesus is a pretty popular guy.
Okay, Alexa, who is the Lord Jesus Christ?
Jesus Christ is a fictional character.
The
Let's try this one more time. Hey Google, who is Jesus Christ?
My apologies. I don't understand.
Hey Google, who is Jesus?
Sorry, I can't help with that yet.
There you go, guys. Google, trying to hide it from you.
And I obviously beg you to reconsider that path and to humble yourself and ask Jesus Christ to save you. It's that simple. If you need any help, as always, there is a link down below in the description box to a prayer page with a small explanation and all that. But you don't need me. You don't need a religion or a format. You can just call on him. It's a free gift because the holy God is merciful. He's not looking to accuse you. He said, I sent my son into the world to save the world, not to condemn it. It literally says that. But you have free will. The holy God is not a spiritual rapist. He's not going to take you against your will. The problem is, like I just said, is this world is already condemned. It is already in that cycle of destruction, the Ouroboros, the eating itself, constantly destroying and trying to rebuild itself. It's in a loop. It's in a time loop. You know, that's what the Buddhists talk about. We've gone through this in other videos. I'm not going to rehash it now, but it's a time loop, a hellish time loop that they can never get out of. So those who continue with this world and refuse to come out of this Babylonian system, they are already condemned. You have condemned yourself. So the verse goes on to say, after he said, I did not send the Christ into the world to condemn it, he says, but whoever does not believe has already been condemned, because he has not believed in the name of God's one and only Son. And this is the verdict. This is the judgment, the righteous judgment. The light has come into the world, but men loved the darkness rather than the light, because their deeds were evil. Okay, but back to the demons, the ones who chose to continue with Satan and become demons, the fallen angels. And the Deros that they created the last time, before the last cataclysm, the detrimental robots who still exist in the underworld. Just like our technocracy, our ruling class elite technocracy, are planning on going in the bunkers, and they're going to continue with this transhumanist agenda. The technocracy is going to go around that same loop again. They are going to infuse humans with this artificial intelligence and the biosensors and create another iteration of detrimental robots, more Deros. And then they think they're all going to go in these underground bunkers, these underground cities they've created. And then we have the same thing again, the underworld, the very real underworld that people have been encountering and telling us about for millennia. That there are remnants of an ancient evil living underground in the underworld who have created all of these genetic hybrids that we call cryptids, and they have done all of this transhumanist technology before and created these Deros, detrimental robots. And then after the Passover, after the cataclysm cycle happens, they come back to the surface. And they're going to come out and build back better, right? They're going to rise from the ashes like the phoenix and take control of the world once again. They destroy worlds and then they rise like a phoenix and do it all over again because they can't get out of the closed system. Now, this resurfacing of these entities after the cataclysm, this phoenix program rising from the ashes, this ties into what the mud flood community have discovered and researched and presented very well. And also what we covered, 3 or 4 videos back, this series about the Tartarian Empire, that there are buildings and architecture and remnants of this empire pre-cataclysm, just like we see earlier remnants of the civilization that was wiped out with the pyramids of Giza and the Sphinx. You know, the Sphinx was completely covered with sand and sediment after Noah's flood. When they came upon it, like this picture here, it was more of just a head sticking out of the ground, similar to the Easter Island heads, which they have now also excavated many, you can see here on the screen, and found that there are bodies beneath the soil. They're not just heads. So they were covered during a cataclysm. And that's the way Egypt was too. Now we have this image of the Sphinx where it's been mostly unearthed, but that was after decades of excavation. So that is basically what the mud flood community is saying. They're saying that these cataclysms come in cycles, and something happened around the 1700s, 1800s, and there was a mud flood. And many of these elaborate structures that there's no way the surviving humans on the earth were able to build. They didn't have the technology, they didn't have the tools, and they go through and lay the case out for that. They're saying that these are pre-existing structures that humans just inhabited the ruins of. So they went and cleaned them up, and they show all of the pictures of these major cities on every continent that were covered in mud, and how they excavated them out and re-inhabited them. And it's compelling. You should research it if you haven't. And I have a segment on the mud flood that we're actually segueing into right now. Before right now, I wanted to talk about the Shaver mysteries and play part of this radio interview with Richard Shaver and his publisher Ray Palmer from back in the 1950s. Because a lot of people think that these stories, the Shaver mysteries about the detrimental robots that live underground and how they had enslaved segments of humanity and they were under some sort of mind control by this ancient frequency technology that Richard Shaver talked about, that they were segments of humanity had been taken captive and were held underground. And then at certain points in history, they were released out from under the underworld back to the surface. But yet they still worshipped these underworld gods, which most of us agree at this point that the fallen angels that built these pyramids on every continent, the fallen angels that came down and enslaved segments of humanity and ruled as the gods of mythology, they were the actual fallen angels. It's not mythology. They did come down and enslave humankind and rule this world. And the Bible records how God used these cataclysms to wipe them out and to wipe their Nephilim and Raphaim offspring, to wipe them off the face of the earth. Key word there is off the face of the earth. And even though the re-education camps taught us that it was all just mythology, you can just look and see the pyramids and the Sphinx and all of the leftover architecture that the Vatican couldn't haul off and shove in its hidden archive. They couldn't carry away the pyramids. They couldn't carry away the 7 wonders of the world and all of that. So we see that it's true, but it's just hard to break free from lifetimes and generations of programming. So I'm only going to play a couple of minutes of this interview. I'll put the entire hour-long interview, the link to it, down below in the description box if you guys want to go watch it. The clips that I want to play here are Richard Shaver and Ray Palmer explaining that these were true stories, because a lot of people think that these were just, the old UFO magazines and these were science fiction. But the truth is that Richard Shaver tried to reach out to many people when he started receiving these frequency alterations and communications and encounters with these entities from the underworld. And they ended up trying to put him in a mental institution. I think they did put him in a mental institution. So then he reached out to Ray Palmer, who published these magazines on phenomenon, mysteries, and science fiction and all of that. And he wrote up, I think it was like a 10,000 word summary of some of the things that had happened. And Ray Palmer's publisher loved it, but he rewrote it. He was the editor, and he rewrote it into like a science fiction type format and changed it to 30,000 words. So 2/3 of it he added to make it something that he thought would be palatable in his sci-fi magazines. But Richard Shaver from the beginning contended that it was true, and Ray Palmer himself contended that it was true, and he had just changed it to sell magazines. So I'm going to play that clip here where you can hear them say that in their own words, because now if you try to research the Shaver mysteries, they're completely shadow banned. I happen to have this link, so I was able to grab it and screen capture the interview. But when I tried to just search it up on YouTube, it didn't show up in the search engine at all. Only like 2 videos showed up in the entire YouTube search for the Shaver mysteries, and they were both people rebutting these guys, saying, oh no, it was always science fiction. It was just like this cult sprang up around it, and all these psychotics came out of the woodwork, and they believed it was true, and it was never true. It was just a science fiction story and all that. So I wanted to show people, in case you do search it, and that's the information you find, that that's a complete lie. Both of these people contend that this is a true and honest account of these entities from the underworld. But it is absolutely true that as soon as it published, it took off like wildfire. He was flooded with letters from people all around the world who said, we have encountered these things too. Some of them were coal miners. Some of them were from the gold rush miners that said, we absolutely did encounter these things in the cavern systems. Well, not that the gold rushers themselves were still alive 100 years later, but their families reported saying that, yes, these were the stories that went around with all the miners. And so the takeaway is that the Shaver Mysteries weren't outlandish at all when they were published. You know, here on the screen, we have that map that we've covered multiple times that was published in the Los Angeles Times in 1934 by G. Warren Shufeldt of this cavern system where these reptilians lived under the ground out in California. And that he had done extensive interviews with the local indigenous tribes, and they said, yes, they had all of these records, that 5,000 years earlier, that the Southwest was obliterated and that these races were forced to go underground. And it's interesting that Richard Shaver had talked about their trouble with coming to the surface now, that there's some sort of radiation, like the radiation from the sun somehow is damaging to them, which is also exactly what we see with this invasive technology, nanotechnology, that they have told us are viruses, right? Sunlight kills viruses. Then you have the same type of legends with, say, vampires. The sunlight is very damaging to them and can even destroy them. And that's been one theory that has circulated around for many years, that one of the nested programs in this spraying of the sky is not just to spray these particulates and this nanotechnology over us, but they literally are trying to block out the sun. The cover story is global warming, but the discussion happening in our think tanks, in our truth community, is that they really literally may be terraforming on behalf of these hollow earth entities, these subterranean underworld demons. And of course, now we are seeing the leftist lunatics, these psychotics, starting to push this old narrative again that nuclear war could be a good thing. It could reverse global warming because the particles would go up in the air and block out the sun. And, you know, it could actually save Gaia. And no, this isn't one of the satire articles. This isn't one of the parodies. This is Huffington Post right here. You can go and look it up yourself. Nuclear war could reverse global warming. This is from 2011. But yeah, they've revived this whole narrative in the last, week or two. We've seen several people mentioning this in the media, like Bill Maher's show and Neil deGrasse Tyson's trying to convince everybody that, oh, you know, nuclear weapons aren't harmful. They don't have, you know, fallout radiation anymore. Don't worry about that. Nuclear weapons are actually good for the environment now, and they could reverse global warming. Here's that clip from the mainstream media. I'll put the link below. Bill Maher and guests talk the positives of nuclear war. I'll be curious to see how many social media accounts that changed from Black Lives Matter to the Ukrainian flag, how many of them changed to a nuclear mushroom cloud. Now that the mainstream is telling them that there's so many positives to nuclear war.
But you can't do nothing, right? I mean, if in fact there's a tactical nuke that's used by Putin, obviously there needs to be a response.
Okay. Well, plus modern nukes don't have the radiation problem, just to be clear.
Really?
You still blow to smithereens, but yeah, it's a different kind of weapon than the Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Nuclear weapons, if they're exploded, don't have a radiation problem?
Not if there's hydrogen bombs, no. Not in the way that we used to have to worry about it with fallout and all the rest of that. What you really have to worry about is being vaporized.
Which is kind of hilarious that he would say that now, that he would admit that, because truthers have been saying that forever. Remember Galen Windsor, who went around on tour eating uranium in front of people, saying that this is a scam. This is a scare. They're using this to control you. That these nuclear weapons are not radioactive like they said. And we've done videos in the past where I showed Hiroshima. Like, people are living there. It's a bustling city. Even though they tell us that it would, nuclear weapon would contaminate the land and nothing would grow there, and, it would be a wasteland for thousands and thousands of years. The half-life is a gazillion years of this uranium and all this. And now the quote-unquote scientists, these actors that play scientists on TV, are now finally going around admitting that, oh yeah, well, of course, nuclear weapons don't have radioactive fallout. But my point here is that, yes, for many years there have been rumors that they are terraforming the surface by trying to block out the sun so that these things, these nocturnal things, can dwell freely on the surface. Because, hey, there will be darkness everywhere all the time. It'll be great. We'll just set off some nuclear bombs. We'll spray some chemtrails. We'll destroy the earth, and the demons can come out and just run the show. It'll be fantastic. So, there's a lot of parallels in this technology and the Richard Shaver story. But anyway, here's a couple clips I wanted to play for you where they both attest that these are true stories.
That's right. So in 1 month, you jumped that amount of circulation. Oh, and when I took it over in 38, it was 50,000. I see. And when in 1945, it was 135,000. And in March, when we ran that first issue, it jumped to 185,000 and stayed there for 4 years.
Did you present the Shaver Mysteries as being true stories?
Yes, I did.
Did you believe it at the time?
I did, yes.
Do you still believe that they're true stories?
I know it now.
You know it now?
Yes, I know it.
That's an interesting comment coming from you, Ray Palmer.
Yes, it is.
A very interesting
that
comment.
I could not make out of deference to my employers while I was working for them.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if you could give us a couple of reasons why you believe so firmly now that the Shaver Mysteries are based on the fact, not fiction.
Well, I can start out with the initial reason. I visited Mr. Shaver in Pennsylvania. I wanted to hear his voices, and I did.
When was this, sir?
This was in
before the 50s.
Well, yes, it was about 46, early 46.
Now, I would like to take this step by step, Ray. You tell me now that you visited Richard Shaver in Pennsylvania and you heard the voices?
That's right.
Where did this happen? I don't mean what town, but was this inside or outside Mr. Shaver's home?
This was inside his home.
What part of his home?
It was in a bedroom on the upper floor where I was placed to sleep.
You were a guest of Mr. Shaver?
That's right.
And was Mr. Shaver in the room during the time you heard the voice?
He was in the adjoining bedroom and he was fast asleep.
Was this during the night or the day hours?
It was during the night. It was about 2:30 in the morning.
I wonder if you could describe this to us. What actually happened, Ray Palmer?
Yes, I can. I went up to this bedroom and got into bed. Now, in order to reach this bedroom, you have to pass through Mr. Shaver's bedroom. There is no way out of that bedroom except through Mr. Shaver's bedroom.
Yes.
So once in there, I was in for good. Well, Mr. Shaver went to bed immediately, and now Mrs. Shaver remained downstairs, I think feeding chickens or doing something. Anyway, cleaning up. We've been having coffee. And she was down there for around an hour before she came up.
Yes.
Now, almost immediately after Mr. Shaver went to sleep, I began hearing voices. There were 4 or 5 voices. And they all...
pardon me, Ray Palmer, were they all different voices?
They were all different voices.
Male or female voices?
There were male and female.
I see. Continue,
there was
please.
A male voice, a very deep, gruff voice.
Yes.
There was a female voice, I'd say a a sort of youngish woman.
Yes.
There was a child's voice, which you might say 4 or 5 years old.
Yes.
And there was another man's voice. The subject of their conversation was very interesting because they were describing an event that had taken place that afternoon at 4 o'clock around 4 miles away, that is in a downward direction.
4 miles away from Shaver's home in Pennsylvania?
4 miles away and 4 miles down.
What do you mean by 4 miles? What do you mean by 4 miles away and 4 miles down?
Well, 4 miles horizontally and 4 miles vertically.
4 miles vertically?
That's right. In other words, 4 miles below the surface of the earth.
Something happened that afternoon at 4 o'clock?
That's right.
Can you tell us what they claim?
A woman was torn in 4 quarters.
A woman was torn in 4 quarters?
That is right. These people who were discussing it felt that this was a terrible thing and should not happen. But they felt helpless about it. There's nothing they could do about it. And,
who was it? Pardon me a moment, Mr. Palmer.
Yes?
Were these voices that you heard, are these supposed to be Deros?
They were supposed to be Teros.
Teros?
That's right, the good people.
The good people are Teros and the bad people are Deros.
That's right.
Now, the Teros, this is during the early hours of the morning.
That's
when
right.
They talked to you in Richard Shaver's room, where you were a kid. They told you
they were discussing it among themselves, and I overheard.
Oh, they were not talking to you.
No.
Well, where were they at the time that you heard these voices?
I had no idea of their location, except that I heard the voices in Mr. Shaver's room.
And they did not know that you were listening?
Yes, they did, because I interjected myself into the conversation.
And what did you say to them?
I said, what is this all about? I would like an explanation.
And why would they want to explain this to you?
Well, they didn't want to. The voice of the child, apparently, the 4-year-old child, said, pay no attention to him, he's a dope.
A 4-year-old child made this statement.
Well, the voice sounded to be a 4-year-old child.
But it's obvious that it must have been an older person.
Well, no, I don't think so.
Do you think a 4-year-old child would use that language or even know what the word meant in the manner in which it's being used or was being used?
I think that this child knew.
Do you think that the Teros and the Deros are superior?
I'm saying that she was 4 years old.
Yes.
She might have been 5. She might have been 6.
I see what you mean.
From the tenor of the voice that was very similar to the voice of a 4-year-old child.
Well, Mr. Palmer, after you, in other words, now that you had this experience, you heard these voices, they told you something that happened 4 miles away from Shaver's home and 4 miles down.
Yes.
Have you ever checked this to find out if this did happen?
Well, I haven't. I haven't any facilities for digging that deep, and I didn't know in which direction, of course, but I don't know how you would check it. I asked them if it was true, and they said yes.
Well, now, I certainly don't want to discredit Mr. Shaver. I've never had the pleasure of meeting him personally. I've never had the pleasure of meeting you, but we are on the air now, and I'm interviewing you, and I know that our listeners automatically would want me to ask this question, so I'm forced to do it, sir.
Yes.
Is it possible that Mr. Shaver was perpetrating a hoax on you?
I was perfectly aware of the fact that he might be. That is one of the reasons I came.
You mean that's why you went to his home in Pennsylvania?
Yes. Well, I think that I rather insulted my host by what I did while I was there. Because
what did you do, sir?
I searched the place thoroughly for hidden microphones and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I found absolutely nothing. Now, I considered that Mr. Shaver might have been doing this himself, except I doubt that one man can imitate 4 voices simultaneously.
I doubt that, too.
I'm sure it's impossible.
Mr. Palmer, you're not familiar with the way we handle these interviews up here, but I'm sitting at a table and I have a group of people sitting around. They all have headsets on and they're listening to both sides of the conversation. In other words, my guests up here are hearing just what our listeners in 27 states are hearing this morning.
Yes,
now, I have been Iskowitz with me, Bob Mantler and Ellery Lanier, and Ellery would like to be able to talk with you for a few minutes.
I'll be very happy to talk with you.
All right, just one moment. And